I, male 45, have been married to my wife Amy, 45 years old, for the past 15 years. I work as an executive at a company, while my wife is a homemaker. She used to work at a plant nursery in her 20s, but after we got married, she chose to be a homemaker. We have 2 daughters, Emma, 13 years old, and Ella, 11 years old. Our family was happy until the truth about my wife's cheating came to light, thanks to our smart TV. So, last week, it was our friend John's birthday. He has been living in a different country for the past few years. We decided to video call him at midnight to wish him a happy birthday. After the wishes, the 4 of us, my wife, John, his wife, and I, engaged in some casual conversations about work and life. Since John didn't have other plans for his birthday night, we decided to hang out virtually and relax for a while. His wife suggested we Chromecast the WhatsApp video call through the TV so we could all sit back, unwind, and enjoy our time together. Amy and John's wife are good friends, and we used to spend a lot of time together when they lived in the same city. Amy connected her phone to the TV since the TV remote app was already installed and active on her phone. We grabbed some beers and snacks and had a good time during the virtual celebration. After a while, Amy began to feel dizzy and ended up dozing off on the couch while John and I continued our conversation. His wife had also fallen asleep. Around 15 to 20 minutes into our call, it disconnected due to internet issues, and my wife's WhatsApp screen appeared on the TV. I was just about to call John back when I noticed over 10 unread messages from someone named Lifeline with a heart symbol. This was unexpected because I wasn't the one communicating with this person. My curiosity got the best of me, so I clicked on the profile picture and discovered it was her childhood friend, Matt. I've met him countless times since we got married because my wife was close to him. They were neighbors and school friends, and there were rumors that they might date each other. However, that never happened. According to my wife, she didn't see Matt as a romantic partner, and besides, Matt was not interested in women. As of now, Matt was single. I wasn't too concerned about my wife's connection with her Lifeline because she had assured me that he wasn't into women. However, just then another message appeared in their chat. "Baby, I miss you." This raised some concerns, prompting me to look into the situation. I hesitantly opened the chat with Matt. It became clear that my wife had been chatting with him all along through her phone while we were on the video call. Unfortunately for Matt, my wife unexpectedly fell asleep without giving him a goodnight kiss, which explained why he was flooding her WhatsApp with messages. After he saw the blue check marks on his messages, he expressed things like, "Why aren't you replying? Is everything okay? I can't sleep without your goodnight kiss. And I can't stop thinking about today's session. OMG, you were so good today." This couldn't possibly be a conversation between close friends. At that moment, I was absolutely certain that their relationship went far beyond mere friendship. I scrolled up in their chat history and discovered that they engaged in graphic messaging almost every night. The chats had occasional flashes of X-rated photos and videos in between, which gave shivers down my spine. I felt numb, yet an insatiable curiosity drove me to find out everything that had transpired between them. While my wife peacefully slept on the couch, I sifted through the graphic content she had shared with her secret lover. The chats occasionally included detailed photos and videos, which only added to my distress. I was emotionally overwhelmed, but I couldn't resist delving into the details. I wasn't sure how to capture screenshots from the TV, so I used my phone to take pictures of the screen. After snapping 5 pictures, I decided I had seen enough evidence. My primary desire was to understand how and why this had happened. I wanted to vent my frustration, but I was at a loss on how to confront her. It was 2 a.m., and I had consumed numerous beers along with a few shots of scotch, leaving me with little energy to do anything but scroll through their conversation. My failed marriage was laid out before me on the large TV screen, and everything felt devoid of meaning. She had shared even the most private details of our moments together with her lover. In fact, after each private moment between us, she would repeat the same with him, as if trying to make up for his feelings. I was utterly repulsed by this discovery. I wanted to pinpoint when all of this had started, so I continued scrolling. But it seemed like an endless abyss, growing deeper with every scroll. By that time, Matt's messages had ceased, and an eerie silence enveloped the house. I felt like I was in a haunting nightmare. To reassure myself that I wasn't dreaming or hallucinating, I grabbed a nearby cushion. I was still scrolling aimlessly when Amy suddenly woke up from her nap. Her drowsy state transformed into sheer panic as she witnessed her dual life unraveling on the TV screen. She hastily snatched the remote from my hand and turned off the TV, then disconnected her phone from it. I just stared at her, utterly dumbfounded. I watched as she opened her WhatsApp chat, skimmed through her lover's messages, and then closed the app with a heavy sigh. That sigh signaled her surrender. She realized that I knew everything. She gently held my face in her hands and drew closer, pleading, "Baby, I can explain. Please, listen to me." I gazed back at her and responded, "All right, go ahead and explain." Her surprise was evident. She had expected me to react with anger and refuse to listen. If it were 2:30 p.m. instead of 2:30 a.m., I might have reacted the same way. I was on the verge of passing out, partly due to the alcohol and mostly due to the shocking truth unfolding before me. I reiterated, "Explain, damn it." She struggled to find the right words and stammered, "Well, actually." You know what? Don't bother," I interrupted. "You know you're in trouble." With that, I stumbled my way to the bedroom and she followed. I turned to her and while slamming the door in her face, told her to stay out. I heard her knocking a few times, but I soon drifted off into unconsciousness. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy head and a fuzzy memory of the previous night. I left my room to grab a bottle of water because my throat was parched. As I emerged from my room, she hurried toward me, and all the distressing memories of the previous night flooded back. She attempted to hug me, but I asked her to step back. She withdrew with teary eyes and a forlorn expression. She insisted that I had misunderstood everything. I ignored her and walked over to the refrigerator to get a water bottle. She continued to pester me, claiming I was overreacting, that he was just a friend, they hadn't had a physical relationship, and it was all innocent flirting. I wasn't prepared for a confrontation, but her feeble excuses only fueled my agitation, and I raised my voice. "Seriously? Who in the world sends explicit photos to their male friends? And what's the deal with all that sexting? Wasn't he supposed to have no interest in women? How did he suddenly become interested in your private parts?" It was a Saturday morning, and thankfully my children weren't at home. They were spending their summer vacation with my parents that week. I fixed my gaze on her, silently demanding an explanation. My mental state was in shambles. I wanted to uncover the truth, even though I knew it would devastate me. I yearned for her to confess every detail of her wrongdoing, yet every time she opened her mouth, I felt nauseous. I clenched my teeth, urging her to speak, only to silence her when she did. I don't know what I was doing. I recognized that I acted irrationally, but how else would someone react upon discovering that they'd been deceived for 15 years, and their entire marriage was a lie? I guzzled down an entire bottle of water in one go, and then demanded that she confess everything from the beginning, or I would confront that two-faced lover of hers and give him a serious beating. This time, instead of concealing or pleading, she decided to reveal the truth. She admitted that she and Matt had always been lovers. They initiated a physical relationship in high school, and had continued it ever since. However, Matt was an idle individual who forthrightly told Amy that he couldn't financially support her. To provide some context about Matt, he's a high school dropout who has never earned a single penny on his own. His parents owned several properties in the suburbs, and the rental income from these properties barely covered his expenses. I had met his parents a couple of times during my visits to Amy's house. They were worried about Matt's laziness and urged Amy to advise him on finding a job or starting a business. Everyone, except Matt, was concerned about his future. Anyway, getting back to the point, Amy admitted that she had severed ties with Matt several times due to his commitment issues, but he always managed to win her back. Surprisingly, Matt had no qualms about Amy dating other men, even though he had never dated anyone else but her. She had a couple of boyfriends before we started dating, so this seemed plausible to me, albeit unusual. What kind of lover does that? Lazy, maybe. I asked her why she hadn't married him if they were so close. She explained that Matt wouldn't have been able to provide a good lifestyle for her. Additionally, Amy herself never had a stable job and didn't have career ambitions that would allow her to be the primary breadwinner. So she chose to be financially dependent and lead a double life. I had one final question. Were the children mine or Matt's? She swore that they were mine, but I remained skeptical and continued to doubt her. She offered to arrange a DNA test if I wasn't convinced. She explained that she couldn't risk having children with Matt because she was afraid that if her secret came to light, and I abandoned the children, Matt wouldn't be able to raise them, even if he wanted to. I wasn't sure whether to feel relieved that at least the children were mine. I told her to leave the house or else I would expose her truth to everyone, including the girls. They might be young, but they were smart enough to understand the situation. She pleaded with me not to tell our daughters, fearing they would hate and disrespect her. I refilled the water bottle, grabbed a few beer bottles, and retreated to my room, locking the door. I sat in front of my laptop staring at the screen for over an hour. I didn't know what to do next, or who to talk to. The truth was eating me up from the inside, making me feel suffocated. After finishing off the beer bottles, I left my room, grabbed my car keys, and drove to my in-laws' place, which was about a 30-minute drive away. My mother-in-law answered the door with a friendly smile, but as soon as she saw my red face, she sensed something was amiss. She called my father-in-law, who rushed out from their bedroom and sat me down. I was sweating and anxious, my heart racing. I explained to them that I didn't know a better way to confront the situation, and then I began narrating everything. My throat grew dry and my body temperature skyrocketed as I divulged the ugly truth. Midway through, we heard someone banging on the door. It was Amy. She stormed into the house and demanded that I leave immediately. She insisted that this was a private matter and that we should deal with it ourselves without involving her parents. The next few hours were a tumultuous mix of emotions. I chastised her for cheating on me for 15 years, while she brushed it off as a casual relationship that meant nothing to her. Gradually, she shifted the blame onto me for turning her parents against her, and I defended myself. My in-laws sided with me and scolded her. I spent the entire weekend drinking, occasionally passing out and refilling my stomach with alcohol. When Monday came around, I went to work feeling groggy and drained. At the office, I searched for divorce lawyers online and scheduled an appointment with one. When I returned home, I noticed that some of her belongings were missing. I assumed she had come while I was away, packed some of her things, and left. I didn't bother to check on her. She messaged me, informing me that she would be staying at a hotel to give me some time to cool off. Really? Did she believe this matter was so insignificant that I could just easily move past it? She also bombarded me with messages, begging for forgiveness and making promises to end her relationship with her lover. It's been a painstakingly long week since that fateful day, and now it's Friday again. The days have been crawling by, and I anticipate the weekend will drag on even more. I have an appointment with the lawyer scheduled for this upcoming Monday. I've been scouring Reddit stories in search of a solution to my predicament, but it seems like my situation is quite complex. More than worrying about myself, I'm concerned about my daughters. How should I handle them? Should I even address the issue with them at all? Update. I'm sorry for not keeping you all in the loop, but I did connect with some of you through private messages and comments. It's been 6 months since my initial post, and let me tell you, it's been quite a roller coaster ride. I met with the lawyer on that Monday and discussed my concerns regarding my daughters. The attorney advised me to approach the kids gently about the separation, avoiding too many details as it might harm their mental well-being. He also mentioned that considering my wife's unemployment and the nature of her affair, I have a good chance of obtaining custody. On the same day, my parents reached out to Amy to bring the kids home from their place. They were still unaware of the situation. She arrived with the children while I was drained and lying on the couch after the stressful meeting with the lawyer. I refrained from discussing anything in front of the children and confined myself to my room. When she entered the bedroom, I urged her to have a conversation with the girls about her infidelity. She burst into tears and begged for my forgiveness, repeatedly expressing her fear that the girls would despise her. Well, she should expect nothing less. After cheating on your family for 15 years, what else could she anticipate? The lawyer mentioned that it would take about a week to send the divorce papers to Amy. So, I had a week to sort things out with the children and my parents. I informed her of my decision to divorce her, and her reaction seemed as though it had come out of nowhere. She voiced concerns about the potential trauma to the children due to the divorce, which left me wondering where her maternal instincts had been hiding all these years. I firmly reiterated my decision and gave her a 1-week ultimatum to talk to the girls in her own way, or else I would be the one to reveal the truth. With my pillows in tow, I crashed on the bedroom couch and drifted off to sleep. Throughout that entire week, I left the house early in the morning and returned late in the evening. As the weekend drew near, she would often cry and wail through the night, sometimes so intensely that it would wake me up. I did feel sorry for her, but how could she carry on like this for so many years? What was she thinking? believing she would never be discovered. She had multiple opportunities to end her affair, yet she persisted. Our private conversations, my vulnerabilities, my deepest secrets, everything, she left exposed to her lover. How could I forget all of that? On Friday evening, she informed me that she had devised a plan to talk to the girls the following day. I nodded in agreement. On Saturday after breakfast, she gathered the children and mentioned that we had some news to share. She explained that I had received a job transfer to a different country, and as a result, I would be moving away for a few years. I was taken aback, and my daughters looked at me in surprise. In front of the girls, I sarcastically asked her, "So, this means I have to move out of the house, right?" She rolled her eyes and signaled me to be quiet. She continued, "Well, if that's the case and the house feels too big for the three of us, we can move to my parents' house for now, and later we can find a smaller place." The girls were clearly confused by this explanation. They were young, but not naive enough to miss the game she was trying to play. My younger daughter told Amy that what she was saying didn't make sense, while the older one directly questioned us. "Are you guys getting divorced?" I shot a stern look at Amy and urged her to tell the truth. With a sigh, she broke down. The girls turned to me for answers, and I told them they were correct about our divorce. I explained that we no longer felt compatible with each other. My older daughter even suggested that I might be having an affair, which was why Amy was crying. She held her mother's hand and asked Amy if I was cheating on her. Instead of clearing the air, Amy simply hugged her, leaving the girls disgusted with us both. I was furious with that manipulative woman. I couldn't believe how she had turned the situation against me. I ended up telling my daughters everything, explaining how I found out, but of course, I left out the graphic details. Amy shouted at me, accusing me of reneging on my word. She argued that I'd given her the freedom to explain things to the girls, so why wasn't I supporting her when she talked about my job transfer? The situation had spiraled out of control, and I decided it was time to stand up to Amy's manipulation. I called both my parents and my in-laws and asked them to come over as soon as possible. They all lived within a 25-30-minute drive, and within an hour, they were at my house. That 1 hour felt like a never-ending nightmare that I'll never forget. My daughters were crying, clinging to me, and witnessing this, Amy did her best to justify her actions. She went as far as painting me as a liar and accused me of manipulating the girls against her. Her arguments ceased only when I mentioned I had photos of those conversations. My parents were shocked by the scene before them. I gave them a brief account of the situation. Everyone was repulsed by Amy's reprehensible actions. She continued sobbing and pleaded for forgiveness. I felt a moment of pity for her. It was painful to see her in this state, but she had brought it upon herself. Instead of casting me as the villain in front of my daughters, she could have simply told them that we had fallen out of love or something similar. But she wasn't willing to accept even the slightest blame, and now her ugly truth was exposed to everyone, including our daughters. I made it clear that we were moving forward with the divorce, and the girls would be staying with me. I asked her parents to take her away. Even the girls themselves asked her to leave. My parents decided to stay with us for a few weeks to offer support and help us through this tough time. It was undoubtedly a challenging period, but I'm relieved that we emerged from it stronger. I've started therapy for all three of us, and we're all in a much better mental state now. My divorce proceedings are ongoing. Amy has made a claim on my house, which I'm contesting because I don't believe she deserves any part of it. Interestingly, she didn't contest the custody of the children, which makes her priorities quite clear and simplifies things for us. During our confrontation and even afterward, Amy promised to sever all ties with her lover. However, after moving in with her parents, she was caught visiting her lover's house. Her siblings discovered this and humiliated her to the point where she had to leave the house. Her parents also confronted Matt for his actions and informed his parents about the situation. As far as I know, Matt's parents have stopped providing him with rental income from their properties and urged him to support himself. Meanwhile, Amy is working as a sales agent in a showroom. I no longer dwell on thoughts of her. My focus is on raising my daughters and providing them with the best life I can. Wish me luck. Story 2. My wife, who is 31, and I, who am 32, have always shared a loving relationship. We were high school sweethearts and decided to get married when she became pregnant. The pregnancy was the reason we tied the knot. From the beginning, we've had an active and enjoyable bed life. Throughout the years, we've been very happy together, and there hasn't been any reason to think otherwise. However, raising our son has been quite challenging since he's always been prone to illness. Doctors initially suspected anemia, which made his health struggles more complicated. As he reached the age of 13, these issues became more frequent. He would often experience severe trapped gas, causing him to hunch over in pain and feel immobilized. Fatigue plagued him, no matter how much he slept. He also suffered from constant lightheadedness and occasional dizzy spells that seemed to appear out of nowhere. These health concerns were frustrating because they were unpredictable, and we struggled to identify their root cause. I empathized deeply with my son's suffering, especially because no one in my family had experienced such an illness. We never conducted a genetic test to determine the source, assuming it might be related to my wife's side of the family. The doctors consistently found him to be anemic through various tests, which could either be a genetic or acquired condition, leaving us uncertain about its origin, despite his efforts to increase his iron intake. Our family went through a lot due to our son's health issues, and it became our new normal. Fortunately, we decided to consult a different doctor, who eventually diagnosed him with celiac disease. Eliminating gluten from his diet made a significant difference, and he started feeling like a normal person again. Celiac disease is hereditary and tends to run in families. Interestingly, both my wife and I were relieved because, for once, we had the ability to control his flare-ups. We no longer had to arrange our lives around hospital visits or be ready to rush him to the emergency room at any time. It was a sense of relief we hadn't experienced in 13 years. Little did we know that this would mark the beginning of the unraveling of our marriage. Discovering the root cause of our son's inherited illness would shatter our family and expose a 14-year-old secret only my wife could explain. The doctor suggested that my wife and I undergo a blood test to determine which side of the family the disease originated from. We took the blood test and the results came back negative. This meant that celiac disease antibodies weren't present in our blood. We repeated the test and the outcome remained the same. During our next visit, the doctor was perplexed and even questioned if our son might be adopted. We assured him that this wasn't the case, but the situation was awkward, and I noticed my wife's discomfort. On the drive back from the doctor's office, I remained unusually quiet, my thoughts drifting back to the time when our son was conceived. I remember making a humorous suggestion about getting a paternity test back then because I was still using protection. Her response was a simple, "Don't be silly," which was the expected reply. She could have reacted differently, but her nonchalant response was all it took to brush it aside. I had only been joking, and now, more than ever, I regretted making that comment. She knew I wasn't serious. It was frustrating. Despite having doubts, I couldn't bring myself to confront her about it. It seemed unimaginable. I had raised him since birth, and he meant the world to me. He was my legacy. The sleepless nights, the pain, the deception. It was all beyond anything I could have imagined. The idea that he might not be my biological son was inconceivable. I was even afraid to go for a DNA test because of what it might reveal. Eventually, I gathered the courage to order a test kit online and sent it in. When the results came back, my world fell apart. I didn't know how to process this. We had gone through college together with hardly any issues. I believed we had a happy life together, sharing similar work schedules. And I had never suspected anything was going on behind my back. But now, it was clear that this child was not my biological son. When she returned home that day, she found me sprawled on the floor with a half-empty bottle of scotch. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't even realize she had come in until she tried to rouse me. I confronted her, demanding to know who the real father of the child was. She stepped back, appearing confused, then responded with anger, insisting that I was the father. I accused her of lying, asserting that she had been deceiving me for 13 years. I disclosed that I had taken a DNA test, which had revealed that he wasn't biologically mine. She asked to see the DNA test, but I refused, urging her to answer the question directly. Instead of addressing the paternity issue, she attempted to deflect blame by bringing up the fact that I had sought a paternity test. She made it seem as though my choice to get a paternity test was worse than her affair with another man and bringing home a baby 13 years ago. All while lying to me and allowing me to raise him as my own. She tried to shift the blame onto me, as if it were my fault for seeking a DNA test. I told her that she was the reason our son had suffered for 13 years. She knew why, and she must have. Yet she allowed him to endure it and let me bear the burden, all to protect her secret. She made every effort to dodge responsibility and shift blame. But I eventually warned her that if she didn't reveal the true identity of the child's father, I would contact every man she had interacted with over the past 13 years and request a DNA test from them. My eye had turned bloodshot, signaling my intense seriousness. And finally she broke down. She confessed that our son belongs to a co-worker from her previous job. She revealed that she had fallen for this guy over the course of a month. They had been close a few times, and then it stopped because of her deep love for me, and during that whole month, I had not the slightest inkling of what was happening, as I continued to live my happy life. Now, I find it incredibly hard to trust her. It's difficult for me to even look her in the eyes. I used to believe that we had everything we wanted, even making plans to have a child together, when this revelation came crashing in. We were genuinely happy, or so I thought, until he entered our lives. Before, I was content. I thought our marriage was solid, but now it feels like it was all a facade. We have a beautiful home, nice cars, a comfortable life without financial concerns. But I've lost what truly mattered. She claims it only happened once, a moment of adventurous desire. A desire for something out of the ordinary, but I struggle to believe her. It's more than just being cheated on. It feels like my entire life has been a falsehood. She's not the person I once knew, he's not my biological son, and ultimately, I find myself alone, without any true offspring of my own. The tears couldn't be contained. I couldn't bear to stay in our home any longer. I reached out to my boss at work, confessing everything and expressing my need for an extended leave. He grew concerned about my mental state and insisted on driving over to my house to ensure I was okay. I wasn't particularly close to my boss, but he made the effort to drive over to my house and took me out to a restaurant that evening, giving me a chance to step away from home. During our conversation, he shared a poignant story about a friend of his who had discovered his child wasn't biologically his, and subsequently took his own life. He expressed a strong desire to provide me with all the support I needed. My boss encouraged me to take an extended break from work, urging me to pursue something I've always longed for but couldn't due to my responsibilities. One of my long-standing dreams has been to travel. I've never ventured beyond the borders of my country, aside from a trip to Mexico, as I've always been dedicated to providing for my family, especially in case of emergencies concerning my son. This dedication to our family is the reason we haven't traveled much. I've always harbored a desire to explore developing countries, places that are both safe and different enough to provide a true cultural experience. When my boss brought up this idea, it unexpectedly brought some happiness into my life. It served as a welcome distraction, a new adventure. My wife and I have always dreamed of visiting destinations like Kenya, Namibia, and Thailand. My wife accused me of running away from our problems, but I explained that I needed some space to think. The situation has taken a toll on me, and I can't look at our son the same way. It's important to clarify that it's not his fault. I've cherished that little troublemaker since before he was born. However, my current feelings are different. I can't help but view him as someone I've raised, yet he's not truly my son. This connection has been shaken to its core. With everything that's happened, I needed a break. So I applied for a tourist visa to Kenya, and surprisingly, I got it within just 24 hours. It gave me something to look forward to, and I'd recommend to anyone going through a tough time to travel somewhere with a different culture. It's a perfect way to temporarily shift your focus. I knew it wasn't the ideal time to visit Kenya, but the distraction was exactly what I needed for my mental well-being. For a few hours, I could escape from thoughts of my son and wife, and simply be in the moment, surrounded by the locals and nature. I had a blast. I went snorkeling, enjoyed boat rides, and experienced the genuine warmth in the eyes of people I'd never met before. It was precisely what I required during that period. After spending a week in Mombasa, I decided to return home to sort things out. I had made up my mind to get a divorce from my wife. Upon my return, I felt like going back to where I'd just come from because home didn't feel like home with her around. I couldn't look at her, couldn't stand the sound of her voice, and I had even started distancing myself from my son, which made me feel absolutely miserable. My son is a bright kid and he already senses that something is wrong, but I can't help it. I want to make it clear that I will never abandon my son under any circumstances. I feel disconnected from him, but I attribute it to the shock of recent news. Nevertheless, it needs to change, and I'm well aware of that. As for my marriage, my wife suggested we seek marriage counseling, claiming that her affair happened a long time ago, and she's been faithful since then. But how can I be sure she hasn't cheated on me again? I used protection when I was with her, while she was having unprotected sex with a former co-worker. She knew 13 years ago that the child isn't mine, but chose to lie for all those years. How can I trust anything she says? That's why I asked for an amicable divorce to give myself a chance to heal. I suggested we share custody of my son, and I would still be his legal father because I still care about him deeply. None of this is his fault, and I want what's best for him. At this point, my wife agrees with everything. However, I'm worried that my feelings toward my son might change over time, and that terrifies me. I've also told my soon-to-be ex-wife that she needs to reach out to the biological father and inform him. It's better for everything to come out in the open now. She initially wanted me to keep this secret from the biological dad, as well as from our family and friends. I agreed for the time being, but once the divorce is finalized, I'll contact the biological dad, and I'll have to break the news to my parents, which won't be easy for them to accept. I'm still young, and I believe I can start a new family, which might be the best way to move past this betrayal. Currently, I've already initiated the divorce proceedings, and it should be finalized within the next 5 months. In the meantime, I'm actively looking for an apartment, and I intend to leave the house to my soon-to-be ex-wife and my son.